Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. MALLOR GRODNER attorneys providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Alumni Association connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. Alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Many local businesses that applied for federal aid and met the qualifications still haven't gotten any money.
Last week, I got the message from my lender that all the funds were run dry.
What options do small businesses have as they struggle to float? That's just ahead. The clock is ticking for a local couple trying to adopt a teenager from China.
The child we are adopting is getting ready to age out of the orphanage and will be unavailable to adopt after October.
As the pandemic continues, the family struggles to understand what is going to happen to the son they want to adopt. And seeds are in short supply as more people get into gardening and try to grow their own food. We'll have that story and much more from around the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Well, Indiana is still struggling to test people for the coronavirus. The state's goal is to test 6,300 people a day, but on its best day, the most people who were tested was only about half of that. State Health Commissioner Dr. Chris Bach says healthcare providers should order tests for anyone who is symptomatic for COVID-19. But Bach says one challenge is identifying sites statewide where those tests can be administered.
Because it is something that does still require usually a nasopharyngeal swab, which usually requires the personal protective equipment to be able to do that testing.
A lack of those swabs, she mentions, are another issue. Bach says the state has been trying to buy more swabs and a special solution called viral transport media for the test, but the federal government has taken over the supply, and Bach says she can't find any to purchase. Looking at neighboring states, Kentucky is the only state that has tested fewer people than Indiana. Illinois has tested about 100,000 more people than the Hoosier state. Well, the federal government is preparing to dole out more aid to small businesses, but at the same time, some Hoosier business owners are still waiting for funds from the first round of loans. Adam Pinsker reports.
Janae Schenk heard about the Paycheck Protection Program in March.
And I applied first thing in the morning, got up, got my coffee, and got the application sent through.
Schenk owns Elegant Hair Designs in the south side of Indianapolis. She remembers the day she told her 4 employees she had to close because of the coronavirus.
When we first had to shut down, they were saying, 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks, we'll be fine for a couple weeks. And then it was 2 more weeks.
Now, weeks have turned into months, and adding insult to injury, Janae never got her loan money even though she met the criteria and her application was approved.
Last week, I got the message from my lender that all the funds were run dry.
Janae's husband is able to work during the pandemic, so she has some money coming into the household, but she worries about paying her employees and her rent.
He's not demanding the rent right now, but it's going to come due. The minute I'm able to start working again, he's going to want that back pay.
Schenk also applied for an economic injury disaster loan when her business first shut down. Funds from that program come from a different pot of money, and a Small Business Administration official says many of those loans are still being processed. As for the Paycheck Protection Program, the SBA says 36,000 loans were approved in Indiana at a value of $7.5 billion. The money was not loaned out on a first-come, first-served basis.
Whether you're a big lender or the smallest of the smallest lender, no one had an advantage. It was all a fair playing field.
In Bloomington, kind of the opposite situation. Jeff Meese, who owns a larger small business, Pizza X, says that it only took about 10 days to get his PPP loan. It came through this past Tuesday.
We're a little late in application. I think we filled out the paperwork 5 times because our banker kept coming. It's done through banks, and our banker kept coming back with different ways that they wanted us to fill out the application.
Meese and his business partner own 5 Pizza X locations in Bloomington, plus a handful of other businesses. But the PPP loans are only forgivable if they are used for specific expenditures, such as employee payroll. Meese gave his employees a 75% raise through June.
Our restaurants that are shut down really are not in a position to borrow it and have it forgiven.
Although Meese is running delivery and takeout orders, it's not enough to make up for the loss of in-store sales, as well as his catering service and other restaurants in his portfolio.
We still have tremendous amounts of overhead to pay. We also have the losses. What happens to all the food that we had in our inventory when we shut down?
As for when the appropriate time would be to reopen, Meese says every business owner needs to consider how reopening will affect the situation around them. Some, like Janae Schenk, believe the sooner the better.
I think there's a way that we can absolutely open and do our job safely. Our industry is very heavily governed and restricted anyway when it comes to sanitation.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Adam Pinsker.
U.S. Senator Todd Young says the federal Payment Protection Program funding is meant for small businesses, and big companies that received some of the money should return it.
I do think that there will be some public resistance towards those companies and those individuals who are tapping into a finite amount of money.
The program is meant for small businesses to keep employees on the payroll and cover their bills. Young says it looks like that's where most of the money is going because the average loan amount is about $150,000 or less. But some publicly traded companies, including MS Communications and Hallador Energy in Indiana, received funds as well. Well, changes to Bloomington's bus routes will have to wait at least until next January. As Mitch Legan reports, officials decided to put route improvements on hold because of the coronavirus.
This route leaves the downtown area, comes down West 3rd Street to Curry Pike, and then down to the Walmart area.
Bloomington Transit spent the last 2 years realigning bus routes to meet demand. Then the coronavirus hit.
That has certainly changed a number of things for us, and our primary concerns about implementation of the service changes are what impacts will we have that are long-term in terms of the budget.
May says it's too early to tell, but the virus and lockdown could have significant impacts on funding from the state transportation department, passenger revenue, income tax revenue, and federal gas tax revenue. Plus, nobody knows if IU will hold in-person classes this fall, so student revenue could plummet. And when the governor's stay-at-home order gets lifted, are people going to use public transit like they did before? Because they aren't now.
We're down from 16 to 17,000 to about 1,400 daily right now. So, less than 10% of what we normally carry on a typical weekday.
In 2018, Bloomington Transit started looking at realigning bus routes according to demand. Transit ridership had been falling. Now, ridership's down more than 90%. So the Transit Board of Directors will wait until later this year to decide on the bus route changes.
If our revenue goes down significantly for 2021, we might have to change our service levels there. So best to have a good handle as to what our revenue sources are going to be for next year before we implement service changes.
And funding isn't the only question. Currently, 28% of Bloomington Transit's drivers are on leave for a variety of reasons, and some might not come back.
We don't know how many of our employees will be returning. Obviously, we have to have sufficient number of drivers to be able to provide the service levels that we want to provide.
May says bus service will continue for now with a limited Saturday schedule, but they'll need more time to determine the long-term impacts of the coronavirus. May expects those to be significant and long-lasting. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Mitch Legan.
As America stays home during the pandemic, many have started gardening as a way to keep busy and provide food for their families. But the high demand for seeds is leading to a nationwide shortage. Our Ethan Burks visited a local gardening shop to see how they're dealing with the situation.
Yes, high phosphorus organic fertilizer for free.
Kyle and Monica Billman own and operate Gold Leaf Hydroponics on the south side of Bloomington. The husband and wife have more than 30 years of combined experience in the gardening industry, but the surge they're seeing during the pandemic caught them by surprise.
All in all, I'd say business is actually a little better than I would have anticipated for right now, all things considered.
Billman says online sales and curbside orders have skyrocketed since mid-March and haven't slowed. He says many online outlets have delays on seed orders, with some items out of stock entirely.
It's getting harder and harder to find those seeds online, and even our suppliers are, starting to dry up.
Luckily for Kyle and Monica, they have more than a half dozen suppliers. This means if they run into an issue where orders can't be filled, they can pivot and use a different supplier.
That's one of the benefits of being a small business, is that we can make quick decisions and, alter our operations and inventory to kind of suit the market and customers week by week.
Although it's a busy time for the Billman family, they say it's exciting to see so many people embracing the gardening lifestyle and becoming more sustainable. Is there a certain type of food you've seen that's been bought more by people?
I'd say right now people are growing a lot of the staples like tomatoes, peppers, herbs, but a lot of root crops too.
Billman believes the pandemic has made people think differently about their lifestyle choices, which is something he'd like to see continue.
I would hope that those are changes that these people maintain and even share and pass on to their kids and friends.
With all that's gone wrong during the coronavirus outbreak, the Billmans are glad their passion for plants and the environment has resonated with more people. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Ethan Burks.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. The global coronavirus pandemic is putting some international adoptions that have been in the works for months in limbo. Ahead, the clock is ticking for a local couple whose son is about to age out of the system. And have you seen this quarantine art challenge? People are recreating famous paintings with things they have lying around the house. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
The WTIU WFIU news team connects Indiana to the world. We bring you the top news of the day on radio, TV, and online. We round up the stories that have people talking each week and dig deep into the issues that affect your community the most. The WTIU WFIU news team is where you are and telling your story.
In a time of change, where can you find in-depth reporting and thoughtful analysis? Washington Week on PBS. Join moderator Robert Costa.
When I was at the Capitol this week, I encountered the same.
And a panel of award-winning journalists.
You're seeing a divided nation, and you're seeing.
For insights and perspective.
Tonight there was a key development in the
Senate. You won't find anywhere else.
What a week.
Washington Week.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Well, COVID-19 has killed tens of thousands and disrupted economies around the world. It's also making it harder to adopt children from abroad. For one family in Indiana, the process has turned into a race against time. George Hale reports.
Last November, Sue and John Skies had a surprise for their adopted son, Weston.
Guess who's coming to America?
Who's coming here?
Yeah,
show Dad.
Your friend from China. Your best friend.
The family adopting him lives only 30 minutes away. Weston's friend is Joji, a 13-year-old boy who's lived in a Chinese orphanage his entire life.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah. How did they tell you?
Like, they just told me, they was telling me Joji Chen's come here. So they gonna live 30 minutes away, and then for a second, I just thought they were joking.
As soon as Weston got adopted by a family living in Fort Wayne, he prayed constantly that his friend would find a family too. Walt and Robin Houston will be Joji's adopted parents if all goes according to plan. They live on Lake James in northeast Indiana.
The encouraging part for Robin and I is that he has a best friend here that's close, that can help him get acclimated here.
Our kids are all grown and gone. They don't live here anymore, and we decided that we have enough love and a lot of stuff to do here to share with another child. So we both had a desire to have another child. So we decided to adopt.
They originally planned to travel to China in June to meet Joji and finalize the adoption arrangements. But that was before COVID-19. Joji's case is more complex and urgent than most. His orphanage is in Hubei, the province originally hit by the coronavirus. It's far from clear when it will be possible for the Houstons to visit, which is a requirement under Chinese law.
The child we are adopting is getting ready to age out of the orphanage and will be unavailable to adopt after October.
Another requirement, China allows adoptions only up until age 14, and the clock is ticking because Joji is 13 and a half.
I think one of our concerns, him being deaf or hard of hearing, is where would he be put? What would happen to him?
Minnie and Walt's family are deaf, and he's fluent in sign language. He feels uniquely qualified to adopt someone with hearing problems. He's already planning to help Joji learn American Sign Language if necessary.
And with my parents being deaf and him being deaf, we feel like that he has more of an opportunity, for a better life.
That's the I love you sign in sign language.
Oh, that's very nice. Vicky Truelove is the administrative director of Hand in Hand, the adoption agency that has pre-approved the Houston's application. Truelove is used to all kinds of obstacles from the countries she works with, and she thinks there could be a solution for the Houstons amid the pandemic.
Anytime you're doing an international adoption, there's a central authority in the foreign country that makes the rules for that country.
In China, that's the Center for Children's Welfare and Adoption, or CCWA. In the U.S., it's the State Department, and they've worked together in the past.
What we will do, and what we have done in different cases, is either as an agency appeal to the central authority to make an exception on a specific case, and also ask our U.S. State Department if they can make a similar appeal.
Truelove says that one thing going for the Houstons is that while China's age limit is 14, the United States allows adoptions up until 16. That means they would only need to convince China to make an exception, not the U.S. as well. But until the travel restrictions end, there's little for the Houstons to do but stay at home and worry.
The sad part is, it breaks my heart, is that he's been there since birth. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be aging out 14. He's been there his whole life. And I know it's going to be a big, big change for him. Yeah. And we just want to make it as easy and as peaceful for him as possible.
Did God answer your prayers?
Yes.
Yes, He did. Isn't that great?
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm George Hale.
We reached out to the State Department and the Chinese consulate in Chicago and will follow up on any new information in this case. Brown County commissioners are moving money from existing county funds to help cover costs for the Brown County Music Center. As Brock Turner reports, not everyone agrees it's the best way to get through the pandemic.
1, 2, 3.
The center, which opened last year and was already turning a profit, was forced to postpone shows and close amid social distancing requirements and closures of non-essential businesses.
There are times when money is loaned from one fund to the other. That's not an uncommon practice. Obviously, the music center is one of the most important facilities in the county, and being the draw, and that's a good use of time and funds to help prop them up during this moment.
Diana Biddle is one of the commissioners who supported the measure. She says the transfer allows for up to 4 months of mortgage payments that must be repaid by December 2020. Biddle says the plan gives the county and center time to figure out next steps. She says situations like these are constantly changing, and Indiana code allows for these types of transfers.
It's a real juggling game, and I don't know if you're not in this office every day, keeping those plates spinning in the air, it's kind of hard to comprehend and appreciate the timing and the intricacies of what all is involved in making those things happen.
But not everyone is on board. Some in the community disagree that taxpayer funds are being diverted from road funding, at least temporarily, to help keep the center afloat.
I would warn taxpayers anytime that there's a venue like this that you really need to stay up on your legislators, your elected officials, so that they don't bury you in debt.
But Mitchell and others say they hope the center can reopen soon. Biddle insists this plan is temporary and that nearly all postponed shows have been rescheduled. Rescheduling events keeps the center from losing long-term revenue, but has an impact for concert goers. Live Nation, a national ticket broker and promoter that works with the center, has been hesitant to offer refunds to ticket holders. Pending legal action could change that, but a resolution is likely months away. Local officials say they are applying for low-interest forgivable loan programs and talking about creating grants through existing funds to help Brown County small businesses during the pandemic. The Brown County Music Center was not available for comment. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Brock Turner.
In addition to reallocating road funding, many residents were concerned about the potential purchase of a building in Nashville. Norton says low interest rates make it a good time for that purchase, and he says it's expected to save the county money in the long run. Well, this spring's Little 500 has been canceled for the first time in its history due to the coronavirus. Our Ethan Burks is outside Bill Armstrong Stadium, where the race was scheduled to happen this weekend.
Bloomington's tradition of the greatest college weekend will have to wait. Both the women's and men's races for Friday and Saturday have been canceled, but there's still a possibility the race will continue in the fall. Since 1951, the Little 500 has become the largest collegiate bike race in the United States. IU student and race competitor Hannah Lewis became part of that tradition last year when her Teeter cycling team won the women's division.
Seeing all of the work that we did and, every late night that we were together biking and every trip to the gym and everything just felt so much better now that it had paid off.
But this year, all that hard work and training won't pay off because the race is canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. For hundreds of competitors, that's a disappointment.
I'm still kind of upset. I put in all this work to train and, my team is my best friends, and now all of that work and training has just kind of halted.
IU has canceled all spring semester student events. The Student Foundation, which sponsors the race, says it will decide on rescheduling at a later date. Lewis says the foundation told racers that postponing to the fall is still a possibility. It's now a waiting game to see if and when Bloomington's treasured tradition will continue in 2020. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Ethan Burks.
Folks living in nursing homes and care facilities are at higher risk of the coronavirus. The state has reported nearly 15% of cases are in these facilities. Now, one way nursing homes are working to keep people safe is by prohibiting visitors. As Sarah Whitmire reports, that's not only family, friends, and other loved ones, but also groups who regularly visit for various outreach programs.
The weather was perfect Wednesday afternoon for Mark Wiedenmeyer to host a group of his musician friends on his front lawn in Bloomington for a makeshift concert. That's Wiedenmeyer on the keyboard. Usually this group visits care facilities and retirement communities, nearly 24 of them. They perform and have informal sing-along time.
We go about 34 hours a month, an hour different places. And so they're really locked in. And I wanted them, because they love Mark and they love to watch his hands and hear him play the music, and they love to sing with us.
Group singer Blue Butterfly Woman says since mid-March they've been trying to figure out a good, safe way to gather and do music.
We just love each other and we want to get together and sing. And we feel horribly, horribly horrible, and it couldn't be truly more perfect. Outdoors, it's Mark's yard. He can bring his keyboard and be right there.
They're videotaping today's session, and then they're going to put it up on YouTube so folks in nursing homes and care facilities can still have some music during the pandemic.
Music is the universal language of love. Music's therapeutic, and it brings people together. And when we sing in care centers, to watch them come alive, to watch their faces just wake up and they sing, it's just wonderful.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Sarah Whitmire.
And as we end another week of sheltering in place, many people are running out of chores and home improvement projects to pass the time. Some of our more gifted minds are turning to the arts. Hoosiers are creating and sharing quarantine art. It's a global phenomenon in which people recreate famous paintings and sculptures in their homes. The Newfields Nature and Art is closed for now, but it's inviting Hoosiers to share their best recreations.
We wanted to join in on the fun, so last week we invited everybody to recreate their favorite piece of Newfield's collection with objects that they found at home. And it was a great success. People had a lot of fun with it.
We asked the museum to share a few of its favorites, and you can see they're really getting into it. And you can find more examples of quarantine art on Newfield's social media pages and website. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we bring you new information about the coronavirus in Indiana 24/7. Remember, we want to hear from you. You can share your questions and ideas with us, as well as read our latest stories from across the state at WTIUnews.org. Stay safe. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. MALLOR GRODNER Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. Alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.